The unthinkable has become a grim possibility: nuclear fallout. Across America, various cities face a terrifying reality of unique vulnerabilities should such a catastrophic event occur. From dense populations to critical infrastructure weaknesses, these urban centers could suffer unimaginable chaos, devastation, and long-term peril. The impact of radiation, crumbling emergency systems, and unpreparedness hang over these cities like an unseen specter, warning of the fragile thread balancing modern life and disaster. While many would hope that such an event remains the stuff of dystopian fiction, the vulnerabilities are all too real, begging the question: what happens when the unprepared meet the unimaginable? This video of the 20 most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout shines a sobering light on urban areas where the stakes are the highest. Whether due to poor evacuation routes, dense metropolitan sprawl, or other deficiencies, these cities paint a chilling picture of what might go wrong in the face of one of humanity's greatest fears. Consider this a wake-up call, a stark reminder of how precariously our societal structures are built, and how quickly they could crumble if the worst were to unfold. Prepare to uncover the unsettling realities these cities face in the shadow of potential disaster. 20. Portland, or Portland, Oregon ranks as one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout due to its geographic location and significant urban development. This Pacific Northwest hub is known for its vibrant culture and economic activity, but these same attributes make it a potential target in a disaster scenario. Situated near critical infrastructure, including major transportation corridors and industrial hubs, Portland is a key logistical and urban center, which could increase its strategic importance in times of conflict. Portland's geography also adds to its risk. The city is located near the Columbia River, a vital waterway that supports trade and energy production. This proximity to critical infrastructure in the region would amplify the impact of a nuclear fallout. Additionally, population density creates challenges in emergency evacuation and sheltering efforts. While Portland is known for its progressive disaster preparedness initiatives, the scale and devastation caused by such an event would overwhelm even the most robust plans. The city's abundant urban development and dependence on surrounding infrastructure make it particularly susceptible to cascading effects. Destruction of critical systems, like power grids, supply chains, and water sources, would leave Portland struggling to sustain its population. Furthermore, fallout-related contamination to large swathes of its environment and agricultural regions would compound the challenges. Portland's location on the West Coast is another factor adding to its vulnerability. The possibility of being in the direct line of counterattacks or fallout path from larger attacks targeting the Pacific region increases its risk factor. While progress in emergency response planning has been made, Portland's urban and industrial significance make it uniquely positioned as one of the cities particularly at risk during a nuclear fallout. Comprehensive strategies addressing these vulnerabilities remain critical to improve the resilience of this metropolitan area. 19. Baltimore, MD. Baltimore, Maryland, is ranked among the most vulnerable cities during a nuclear fallout due to its strategic location and dense population. Situated near Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, Baltimore's proximity to such a significant political and military hub heightens its risk profile. A nuclear strike targeting Washington, D.C., could have collateral impacts on Baltimore, given its location within a 40-mile radius. Additionally, its dense urban environment means that fallout effects, including radiation exposure and infrastructure damage, could lead to devastating consequences for a large number of residents. Baltimore's status as a major port city further exacerbates its vulnerability. The Port of Baltimore plays a crucial role in the country's supply chain infrastructure, handling significant volumes of imports and exports. This prominence makes the city an attractive target for adversaries aiming to disrupt economic and maritime activities. A nuclear fallout in or near Baltimore could cause irreversible damage to its critical transportation channels, paralyzing both regional and national logistics systems. The city's challenges also stem from existing socioeconomic vulnerabilities. Baltimore has struggled with aging infrastructure and high poverty rates in some areas, which could hinder evacuation efforts and emergency response during a nuclear event. Limited resources may delay access to shelters, medical assistance, and decontamination zones, leaving parts of the population particularly at risk. Efforts to fortify Baltimore's preparedness for a nuclear fallout would need to address these compounding factors. Improved coordination with federal agencies, investments in shelter infrastructure, and public education on fallout safety could help mitigate some of the risks. However, the proximity to Washington, D.C. and its strategic importance as a port city ensure that Baltimore remains highly vulnerable in the face of a potential nuclear disaster. 18. St. Louis Mo. St. Louis Mo holds a significant position as a major transportation nexus and metropolitan hub, which contributes to its vulnerability during a nuclear fallout situation. The city is home to a complex network of interstates, railways, and an international airport, serving as a critical artery for the movement of goods and people throughout the Midwest. While this infrastructure is vital in normal circumstances, it could become a liability in the event of a nuclear fallout, as its high connectivity may lead to population bottlenecks, evacuation challenges, and potential disruptions to critical supply chains. The metropolitan area's dense population also plays a role in its vulnerability. With over 2.8 million residents in the greater St. Louis area, the demand for emergency response services would likely far exceed capacity during a crisis of such magnitude. The city's urban layout, with its concentration of industrial facilities and commercial zones, adds additional risks, as potential secondary hazards like chemical spills or fires could escalate a nuclear fallout scenario. St. Louis' location along the Mississippi River further complicates matters. Any radiation contamination could potentially spread downstream, affecting water supplies and ecosystems far beyond the immediate area. Another critical factor to consider is St. Louis' historical ties to nuclear industries. During the mid-20th century, the city played a role in U.S. nuclear research and production efforts, leaving a legacy of low-level radioactive waste materials stored in certain areas. These sites could exacerbate nuclear fallout impacts, as pre-existing contamination could be further mobilized. Despite these risks, St. Louis' resilience lies in its strong community spirit and proactive emergency management efforts. Investments in updating evacuation routes, improving public awareness, and coordinating regional responses could mitigate vulnerabilities and bolster the city's ability to respond effectively to such a crisis. 17. Phoenix, Arizona. Phoenix, Arizona, ranks as one of the 20 most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout, largely due to its rapidly growing urban population. With over 1.7 million residents and situated in the heart of the desert, Phoenix is both a bustling metropolitan hub and a strategically significant location. Its population density, combined with sprawling urban infrastructure, increases the risk and impact of a nuclear fallout scenario. One of the core concerns in Phoenix is the lack of immediate natural resources to sustain the population in a crisis. Water scarcity, already a critical issue in the arid climate of the city, would become even more pronounced during a nuclear fallout, as contamination of water sources could render them unusable. Furthermore, the extreme heat of the region poses additional challenges. Without functioning infrastructure, such as electricity for air conditioning or transportation networks to evacuate the area, surviving in the aftermath could be significantly more difficult. Another factor that makes Phoenix vulnerable is its proximity to multiple military installations and transportation hubs, which could make it a potential target during a nuclear conflict. The nearby Luke Air Force Base, along with major rail lines and highways passing through the city, adds to its strategic importance. This increases the likelihood of Phoenix being directly impacted in a nuclear scenario, as key infrastructure could be targeted to disrupt operations in the wider southwestern region. Lastly, the rapid urban growth brings with it a higher reliance on energy grids and supply chains, both of which are fragile in the wake of an attack. The city's ability to recover, repurpose, or shelter its population effectively becomes increasingly strained. All these factors combined contribute to Phoenix's position on the list of cities most at risk during a nuclear fallout. 16. Detroit, Michigan. Detroit, Michigan, is a city whose industrial prominence and strategic geographical location play a critical role in its potential vulnerability during a nuclear fallout. Known as the historical heart of American automobile manufacturing and industry, Detroit houses vital infrastructure that could be considered a primary target in the case of large-scale conflict. Its industrial sites, including factories, warehouses, and production facilities, represent essential components of the nation's economic engine, which could make the city a high-priority target for potential adversaries aiming to cripple production capabilities. Adding to its risk factors, Detroit's strategic position near key transport routes further heightens its vulnerability. Located along the Detroit River, the city serves as a connecting hub between the United States and Canada, facilitating significant trade and logistical operations. The presence of major transportation systems, highways, railroads, and ports ensures that Detroit remains vital to the movement of goods and services. Consequently, such importance to both the U.S. and global economies might bring increased attention in a potential nuclear threat scenario. The geographical layout of Detroit poses additional challenges in mitigating fallout effects. Given its dense population in certain core areas, Along with thousands of structures clustered tightly together, the aftermath of a nuclear explosion would disproportionately affect its residents. Urban areas, by design, amplify the destructive effects of blasts, thermal radiation, and radioactive contamination, leading to potentially devastating consequences in the event of fallout. While efforts have been made to reinvigorate Detroit's resilience as it rebounds from decades of economic challenges, the city's combination of industrial notoriety and geographical importance places it in a precarious position when considering nuclear fallout vulnerabilities. Community preparedness measures, investments in infrastructure resilience, and clear evacuation planning will be essential for the city's residents in such a scenario. 15. San Diego, California. San Diego, California holds a prominent place as one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout due to its strategic location and important military presence. Known for its connection to the U.S. Navy and other armed forces, San Diego houses several military bases, including Naval Base San Diego, Marine Corps Air Station Miramar, and others crucial to national defense. While these installations are vital for military operations, they also make the city a potential target during conflicts involving nuclear weapons, as adversaries may prioritize striking significant defense hubs. Adding to San Diego's vulnerability is its proximity to the U.S.-Mexico border. Border cities like San Diego often experience unique challenges during emergencies due to high population densities, international crossings, and the potential for logistical complications during evacuations. The city's geographic position near the coast also means limited escape routes, particularly if sea-level infrastructure becomes compromised during or after a nuclear incident. San Diego's large population only amplifies its risks. With over 1.4 million residents and an expansive metropolitan area, a nuclear fallout could result in catastrophic consequences for health, resources, and emergency response teams. The dense urban environment could lead to widespread exposure to radioactive fallout, while the influx of people from nearby regions seeking refuge would further strain available medical and relief efforts. While San Diego's robust preparedness capabilities and strong military resources aim to mitigate nuclear risks, its status as a significant geopolitical and military hub makes it an unavoidable inclusion in this list. Enhanced disaster planning, cross-border cooperation, and public awareness are essential to safeguarding this vibrant city in the face of nuclear threats. 14. Denver. Company Denver, Colorado, is strategically located in the central region of the United States, making it a key infrastructure hub for transportation, commerce, and logistics. While this central location has numerous advantages in times of economic and social stability, it also places Denver among the most vulnerable cities in America in the event of a nuclear fallout. Its significance as a regional infrastructure hub means the city is interconnected with vital supply chains, communication networks, and transportation systems, making it a potential target during large-scale attacks or geopolitical conflicts. One major vulnerability lies in Denver's extensive infrastructure network, including its railroads, highways, and air transportation. These systems are crucial not only for Colorado but for the entire nation, as Denver facilitates the movement of goods and people between regions. A disruption or destruction of this infrastructure would cause widespread chaos, cutting off essential supplies and potentially isolating the city from outside assistance. Another factor adding to Denver's vulnerability is its proximity to important military installations, such as NORAD, North American Aerospace Defense Command, located near Colorado Springs. This presence, while crucial for national defense, could make the broader Denver region a prime target during a nuclear attack, given its military significance and potential to disrupt defense operations. Furthermore, Denver's population density contributes to its risk. With over 700,000 residents in the city proper and millions more in the metro area, a nuclear-related disaster would have devastating effects on human life and local resources. The city's location at a high altitude could also exacerbate the spread of fallout particles, impacting not only Denver but surrounding regions as well. These factors collectively elevate Denver's position on the list of cities most vulnerable to nuclear fallout. Its central importance, infrastructure density, and regional significance underscore why the city needs comprehensive preparedness measures and emergency response strategies. 13. Dallas, TX. Dallas, TX is a major economic hub and boasts a significant urban population, which unfortunately makes it one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout. Its strategic importance in the national economy, being home to numerous Fortune 500 companies and critical infrastructure, could make it a potential target in conflict scenarios. The densely populated urban core also increases the risks posed by immediate fallout effects, including widespread casualties and extensive structural damage. Another factor adding to Dallas's vulnerability is its central location in the United States, which situates it near key military installations and industrial centers. A strike in or around the Dallas-Fort Worth region could have cascading effects on the surrounding metroplex. Additionally, the robust infrastructure supporting trade, transportation, and energy distribution in Dallas means any disruption could ripple through the nation, compounding recovery challenges. Preparedness measures in Dallas face significant hurdles due to the expansive metropolitan area and sheer population density. Large-scale evacuation would be logistically complex, with limited time to respond in the event of an attack. The city's reliance on modern supply chains for food, water, and energy exacerbates its susceptibility to prolonged disruptions. Finally, the socioeconomic diversity of Dallas plays a role in determining the fallout's impact. Vulnerable populations, including low-income families and individuals without access to transportation, would face greater challenges in accessing shelter and resources. Public awareness campaigns and enhanced coordination between city officials and federal emergency management agencies could help mitigate some risks. However, given its economic significance and sprawling urban layout, Dallas remains critically exposed in the context of nuclear threats, underscoring the need for robust preparedness strategies to safeguard its residents and infrastructure. 12. Boston Ma. Boston Ma stands as a critical hub of educational and financial prominence, but this status also makes it highly vulnerable during a nuclear fallout scenario. Known for its world-class universities, such as Harvard and MIT, as well as its influence within the financial industry, the city attracts a significant population and thrives on its dense metropolitan environment. However, the very factors that contribute to its success also expose Boston to substantial risk in the event of a nuclear disaster. As a densely populated urban center, Boston would face immense challenges in ensuring the safety of its residents. The proximity of key infrastructure and residential areas would compound the difficulty of evacuation efforts, potentially leading to overcrowded routes and logistical issues. Additionally, Boston's coastal location further complicates the fallout response. Should a nuclear event trigger environmental impacts like radiation contamination, the surrounding water bodies, including the Boston Harbor, could become hazardous for both human health and local ecosystems. The financial and educational industries in Boston would also face grave consequences. Disrupting these sectors would not only impact the city but ripple across the nation, given Boston's vital contributions to intellectual development and economic productivity. Beyond the immediate destruction and casualties, rebuilding Boston after such a catastrophe would require overcoming significant economic and logistical hurdles. Preparedness measures and advanced planning would be critical for minimizing damage if Boston were to face a nuclear fallout. Public safety programs, robust evacuation protocols, and investment in resilient infrastructure could help mitigate vulnerabilities. Despite its potential risks, proper preparation and awareness could significantly enhance Boston's resilience in the face of such an unprecedented disaster. 11. Philadelphia, PA. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, is one of the most historic cities in the United States, known for its foundational role in the nation's independence and its densely populated urban environment. However, these very characteristics place Philadelphia among the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout. With a population exceeding 1.5 million residents and its status as a major metropolitan hub, the city faces significant challenges in terms of evacuation and disaster management in the event of a nuclear crisis. Philadelphia's dense population increases the risk of higher casualties and complicates evacuation efforts in an emergency. The city's central infrastructure, including its industrial zones, transportation networks, and government facilities, could serve as potential targets, amplifying the risk of widespread destruction. Additionally, the presence of critical landmarks, such as Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell, adds cultural significance to the city's vulnerability in the case of a catastrophe. Geographically, Philadelphia's location between New York City and Washington D.C. two major urban centers with high political and economic value further escalates its risk profile. The city could be impacted by fallout from attacks targeting either of these nearby cities. Furthermore, the aging infrastructure in parts of Philadelphia could hinder emergency response and recovery efforts, leaving residents exposed to prolonged periods of hazardous conditions. Addressing Philadelphia's vulnerabilities in the context of a nuclear fallout requires significant investment in preparedness programs and modernized infrastructure. Comprehensive public education campaigns on disaster response, robust evacuation strategies, and collaboration between local and federal emergency management authorities would be essential. Efforts to strengthen the city's resilience could protect its population and cultural heritage in such a worst-case scenario. While the risks are substantial, proactive planning could mitigate the threat and improve the city's readiness to respond to unforeseen events. 10. Miami, Florida. Miami, Florida, stands as one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout due to its significant coastal exposure and economic stature. Known for its picturesque beaches and vibrant culture, Miami is also a hub for economic activity, making it a target of strategic interest. Its vulnerability stems from factors related to geography, climate, and infrastructure. Located on Florida's southeastern coast, Miami's low-lying terrain and proximity to the ocean make it inherently susceptible to disasters, including those exacerbated by nuclear fallout, such as radiological contamination and disruptions in critical supply chains. The city's dense population is another contributing factor to its vulnerability. Miami is home to over 450,000 residents within the city limits and acts as a nucleus for millions more in the metropolitan area. This concentration of people could lead to widespread casualties and logistical challenges in evacuation or emergency response during a potential fallout scenario. Additionally, its reliance on surrounding port facilities and international trade leaves Miami exposed to disruptions caused by radiation hazards, sidelining the economic lifeline of this region. From an environmental perspective, nuclear fallout could have devastating effects on Miami's beautifully diverse ecosystems. The Everglades, a nearby ecological treasure, could face irreparable damage, affecting wildlife and natural resources. Furthermore, fallout contamination of Miami's coastal waters would wreak havoc on the local fishing industry, water supplies, and tourism, key pillars of the city's economic framework. The far-reaching ripple effects could extend nationally as Miami is a gateway for global trade and a cultural epicenter. Miami's coastal vulnerability intertwined with its economic importance underlines the critical need for preparedness and strategic planning. Proactive measures, such as bolstering infrastructure resilience and establishing comprehensive evacuation procedures, are essential to mitigate the city's susceptibility during a potential nuclear fallout. 9. Las Vegas, Nevada. Las Vegas, Nevada, widely known as a bustling tourist destination, also faces significant risks during a nuclear fallout due to its geographic proximity to historical military test sites. The city's history intertwines with nuclear testing, as some of the earliest atomic tests occurred in the nearby Nevada test site, now the Nevada National Security Site, during the mid-20th century, just about 65 miles northwest of the city. This legacy of nuclear activity, combined with its intensely urbanized environment, makes Las Vegas particularly susceptible in the unlikely event of a nuclear catastrophe. Being a major metropolitan area, Las Vegas attracts millions of visitors annually for its entertainment, casinos, and nightlife. However, this dense concentration of people poses challenges in the event of a fallout, potentially complicating evacuation efforts and putting a strain on emergency resources. The high population density increases the risk of exposure to radioactive contamination and makes decontamination efforts more complex and resource-intensive. Additionally, the arid desert environment surrounding Las Vegas could exacerbate the fallout's impact. Without proper infrastructure to access clean water or food during such an event, residents and visitors could face severe shortages of essential supplies. The desert terrain may also make it difficult to find safe shelters that can protect against the harmful effects of radiation. Furthermore, the city's dependence on tourism and hospitality to drive its economy could amplify long-term vulnerabilities following a nuclear fallout. A nuclear disaster in the vicinity would likely decimate its tourism industry, leaving widespread economic devastation in its wake. Despite these risks, Nevada's preparedness plans, including its continued monitoring of radiation and emergency response strategies, provide some reassurance. However, for a city like Las Vegas, where millions gather in bustling hubs, the need for precautionary measures against potential nuclear fallout remains critical. 8. Atlanta, Georgia. Atlanta, Georgia stands out as one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout due to its sprawling transportation network and significant population density. The city serves as a major transportation hub in the southeastern United States, hosting one of the busiest airports in the world, Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. While this connectivity is convenient during normal times, it becomes a challenge during emergencies. Large-scale evacuations would likely lead to bottlenecks on the city's interstate highways such as I-75, I-85, and I-285, limiting the population's ability to escape the impacted areas swiftly. Adding to the complexity, Atlanta's population density exacerbates its vulnerability. Although the city has a more suburban feel compared to densely packed urban centers, the metropolitan region is home to over 6 million people. This dense population would place immense pressure on evacuation efforts, emergency services, and infrastructure during a nuclear fallout. High-density areas such as downtown Atlanta and Midtown could experience overwhelming chaos, with residents struggling to find shelter or relocate to safer zones. Further complicating matters is Atlanta's reliance on its urban core for essential services and supply chains. The city's logistics and transportation industries, crucial for delivering food, medical supplies, and other necessities, depend heavily on infrastructure networks that could be severely disrupted during a nuclear event. Additionally, Atlanta's vast suburban neighborhoods might lack adequate fallout shelters, leaving residents with insufficient protection from radiation exposure. Given these factors, it's evident that Atlanta's strategic location, population distribution, and extensive transportation network, while advantageous in many ways, also make it particularly susceptible in the event of a nuclear fallout. Effective disaster planning and improved infrastructure would be essential to mitigating the risks faced by this major metropolitan area. 7. Seattle, WA. Seattle, WA, stands out as a major strategic port city and a central hub for the tech industry, making it a significant focal point in the event of a nuclear fallout. Its location along the Pacific Northwest coastline, close to international trade routes, gives it immense strategic importance. Seattle's proximity to key military installations and its access to key resources further heighten the risk factors, as it could be perceived as a critical target in geopolitical conflicts. The city's robust tech sector, home to global corporations like Amazon, Microsoft, and Boeing, contributes to its vulnerability. These companies' infrastructures are integral to both the U.S. economy and national defense systems, which makes Seattle a potential high-value target in wartime scenarios. Additionally, the concentration of high-density urban populations in the metropolitan area could make the aftermath of a nuclear event devastating, with widespread casualties and challenges in providing emergency medical services. Another layer of concern arises with Seattle's geographical features, which complicate evacuation and recovery logistics in the wake of nuclear fallout. Surrounded by bodies of water, hilly terrain, and limited transit routes, the city's geography could hinder the efficient movement of people and resources. The prevailing weather patterns in Seattle could also exacerbate the spread of radioactive material, further impacting the region's environment and livability. While Seattle is acclaimed for its innovation and economic prowess, its prominence in global trade, technological leadership, and military relevance underscores its vulnerability during a nuclear fallout. Local governments and organizations must prioritize preparedness plans, infrastructure resilience, and public awareness campaigns to mitigate potential risks and enhance recovery strategies should such an event occur. This underscores the importance of safeguarding this essential city amidst modern global challenges. 6. Houston, TX. Houston, Texas, stands out as a significant metropolitan area with a high level of vulnerability during a nuclear fallout. Known as a global hub for energy production, particularly in the oil and gas industries, Houston houses numerous refineries, chemical plants, and industrial complexes. These critical infrastructures make the city a potential target in a conflict scenario involving nuclear weapons. Any disruption in Houston's energy production could cascade effects nationally and internationally, amplifying its strategic importance. Apart from its role in energy, Houston is the fourth largest city in the United States, with a densely populated urban core. This large population, combined with the city's sprawling nature, poses challenges for evacuation and disaster response efforts. The extensive urbanization means that a nuclear attack would result in high casualty rates and widespread destruction. Furthermore, critical services and transportation networks essential for relief and recovery could be overwhelmed or rendered inoperable due to infrastructure damage. Houston's coastal location also factors into its vulnerability. The geography of the Gulf Coast may limit evacuation routes, particularly in the face of simultaneous natural disasters such as hurricanes. Additionally, fallout from a nuclear attack, combined with potential environmental contamination of air, water, and soil, could devastate surrounding ecosystems and disrupt the livelihoods of millions of residents. Efforts to mitigate vulnerability in Houston involve federal and local disaster preparedness programs. However, the city's complex mixture of industrial assets, dense population, and strategic significance underscores the magnitude of potential risks during a nuclear fallout. Proactive measures, including public education, emergency planning, and bolstering critical infrastructure, are essential to enhance Houston's resilience against such catastrophic scenarios. Houston exemplifies the importance of understanding vulnerabilities in major metropolitan areas to better prepare for low-probability but high-impact disasters like nuclear fallout. 5. San Francisco, California. San Francisco ranks as one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout due to its economic significance and proximity to critical military assets. Strategically located on the West Coast, the city serves as a major hub for global commerce, technology innovation, and financial operations. Its importance as a technological powerhouse, home to Silicon Valley corporations and leading startups, makes it a potential target in scenarios aimed at crippling the U.S. economy. A disruption here could have cascading effects not only nationwide but also globally. Additionally, San Francisco sits near several key military installations, such as the naval base in Alameda and other facilities in the Bay Area. These military assets are vital to the country's defense infrastructure and would likely be primary targets in the instance of such an attack. Their proximity significantly increases the risks for San Francisco's population in the event of a nuclear fallout. The city's high population density further heightens its vulnerability. With almost 1 million residents packed into a mere 47 square miles, the fallout's devastating impact would be amplified. Furthermore, San Francisco's geographic location, bordered by water and connected by just a few major bridges, makes evacuation efforts during emergencies particularly challenging. These logistical barriers could leave many residents at extreme risk in the immediate aftermath. San Francisco's vulnerability underscores the need for thorough disaster preparedness and response planning. From bolstering evacuation infrastructure to establishing emergency communication systems, proactive measures could help mitigate risks. Despite the city's scenic beauty and global significance, its unique combination of economic importance, military proximity, and dense population make it one of the most at-risk locations during a nuclear fallout scenario. 4. Chicago, IL. Chicago, IL ranks as one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout due to its status as a central transportation hub and its dense population. The city's strategic location makes it a key junction for railways, highways, and air travel connecting major regions across the country. While this infrastructure is vital for commerce and daily life, it also puts Chicago at a higher risk of being a potential target, as the disruption of such a significant logistical hub could have widespread consequences for the nation. The dense population of Chicago further heightens its vulnerability. With a metropolitan area housing nearly 10 million people, evacuating or sufficiently protecting the population poses a significant challenge. Crowded urban environments are particularly susceptible to complications during emergencies, with limited time and space for safe evacuation and the risk of bottlenecks in escape routes. Additionally, access to shelters and essential supplies could become strained, leaving many residents exposed. Another critical factor is the city's landmarks and economic importance. Chicago is home to iconic structures, major financial institutions, and global businesses. The disruption of economic activity and destruction of cultural landmarks would amplify the fallout's broader implications. Furthermore, its proximity to Lake Michigan, which provides fresh drinking water to the region, could lead to contamination if nuclear fallout were to affect the area, severely impacting public health and the environment. Despite these risks, Chicago's preparedness measures include emergency response plans and public awareness campaigns. However, the sheer scale of its population and strategic significance means it remains one of the most at-risk cities. Strengthening evacuation strategies, enhancing early warning systems, and investing in resilient infrastructure could help mitigate the potential consequences of a nuclear fallout scenario in Chicago. 3. Los Angeles, California. Los Angeles, California, stands as one of the most significant metropolitan areas in the United States, known for its sprawling urban landscape, dense population, and critical role in the nation's economy. These features, however, also contribute to its vulnerability in the event of a nuclear fallout. With a population exceeding 3.8 million within the city limits and over 10 million in the greater metropolitan area, the density of residents would pose a significant challenge during an evacuation or disaster response effort. The sheer volume of people would lead to congestion, limiting mobility and delaying access to safe zones. Los Angeles is also a critical economic and cultural hub, housing major industries such as entertainment, technology, international trade, and aerospace. The presence of these high-value industries makes it a potential target and raises the stakes for any potential fallout scenario. Furthermore, with its proximity to major ports and transportation hubs, the city is a vital logistical gateway for goods entering and leaving the U.S., making its disruption a catastrophic blow to both the regional and national economy. Geographically, the area faces additional hurdles. Los Angeles is surrounded by mountainous terrain which could trap radioactive fallout, while its susceptibility to natural disasters like earthquakes could exacerbate any damage or complicate recovery efforts. Additionally, the region's infrastructure, particularly its concentrated power grids, water supplies, and communication systems, are not designed to withstand the scale of devastation that a nuclear event would bring. Given its size, economic importance, and dense urban layout, Los Angeles ranks high on the list of cities most vulnerable to nuclear fallout. A combination of preparedness planning, investment in resilient infrastructure, and robust evacuation protocols is crucial to mitigate the risks faced by this sprawling and iconic city. 2. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C., as the capital of the United States, is a critical hub of federal government operations and political significance. Its prominence on the global stage, housing institutions such as the White House, the Capitol, and the Pentagon, makes it a prime target in the event of a nuclear fallout. These landmarks, symbolic of American governance and military command, could be potential focal points of an attack due to their influence and strategic importance. The city's population density and urban layout add to its vulnerability. With over 700,000 residents living in close proximity, plus an influx of government employees, tourists, and commuters daily, fallout-related health risks would escalate rapidly in a nuclear disaster. The infrastructure of Washington, D.C. features historic buildings and outdated systems in some areas, making swift evacuation or disaster mitigation challenging. Furthermore, the dense metropolitan setting means that radiation exposure and debris dispersal would affect a large portion of the region. Another concern is the proximity of military installations and sensitive governmental operations, which could be secondary targets or exacerbate fallout consequences. The presence of these structures increases the likelihood of Washington, D.C. being prioritized in a hypothetical attack scenario. Although emergency measures and defense systems are established to mitigate such threats, the city's direct association with national and global leadership means it remains exceedingly susceptible. Additionally, the dependence on public transportation networks, like the extensive metro system, presents logistical issues for mass evacuations under crisis conditions. Roads and highways may quickly become congested, hindering escape efforts. Thus, the combination of political importance, population density, and logistical challenges solidifies its place as one of the most vulnerable cities in America during a nuclear fallout. Safeguarding Washington, D.C. requires robust defense strategies, preparedness, and public awareness to address these potential risks effectively. 1. New York City. New York City, the most populous city in the United States, ranks as one of the most vulnerable cities during a nuclear fallout due to its high population density and strategic importance. Home to over 8 million residents packed into boroughs like Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens, the city presents significant challenges for evacuation and disaster management. The dense concentration of people makes it difficult to implement effective evacuation plans or accommodate the sudden influx of victims in the aftermath of a nuclear event. From an economic perspective, New York City is a prominent financial hub, housing Wall Street and the headquarters of numerous multinational corporations. The city's economic impact reaches far beyond its borders, making it a primary target in any hypothetical strategic strike. Furthermore, as a global cultural capital, New York represents the heart of American media, arts, and influence. Its symbolic significance on the world stage may escalate its potential as a target during international conflicts or acts of nuclear aggression. Additionally, New York City faces infrastructural vulnerabilities that exacerbate its risks. The city's aging subway system, dense network of high-rise buildings, and reliance on interconnected utilities could result in widespread damage and long-lasting effects in the event of a nuclear fallout. The dense urban landscape could trap radioactive particles, prolonging contamination and complicating cleanup efforts. Compounding these risks is the city's geographic layout. Surrounded by water on multiple sides, New York faces potential bottlenecks in routes for evacuation. Bridges and tunnels essential for entering or leaving the city could become targets, further immobilizing residents. Given its dense population, economic relevance, cultural prominence, and infrastructural challenges, New York City remains one of the most defenseless urban centers during a nuclear fallout scenario, highlighting the urgent need for enhanced preparedness and mitigation strategies. Conclusion: the devastating impact of a nuclear fallout would pose immense challenges for major urban centers across the United States. Cities like New York, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. highlight the diverse vulnerabilities that stem from high population densities, crucial economic and political roles, and aging infrastructure. While these metropolitan areas are among the most at risk, the entire list of 20 cities underscores the widespread need for improved disaster preparedness and resilient infrastructure nationwide. Investing in robust emergency response plans, modernizing critical utilities, and implementing clear evacuation protocols can greatly mitigate the catastrophic effects of such an event. Ultimately, enhancing public awareness and fostering collaboration between local, state, and federal authorities is essential in safeguarding these vulnerable cities and their residents against an unimaginable crisis.